Well, welcome to a breath of fresh footy. Good evening, good morning, good afternoon, and we are really looking forward to talking about our knowledge of the weekend, our teams, and of course, our real point of view. And this episode and series of podcasts with my mates here will be called The Lads, and we will lad it up as much as we can during these times. And what I love about having it on the internet is that you can have 24 hours access to this podcast. So there is no excuse for you not to watch it. So hit the subscribe button on the YouTube page, hit the like button on our Facebook page, and most importantly, if you decide not to subscribe, hit the thumbs up button on our YouTube page. The more thumbs ups we have, the better. But before we get into the topics of the weekend and why people love their soccer here, I need to introduce you to three of my really good friends. We have co-host Philip down below me, and then we have the wonderful Ponna. Give us a wave, Ponna. And of course, my good friend Shnu, and I love his resplendent Manchester United jersey. Funny enough, both are Adidas, the Arsenal and the Man United. And guess what? There's a huge colour variation in that, isn't there? Fabulous marketing, Adidas. Really spectacular. Great use of the creativity. Anyways, let's talk about some footy. So I'm going to go straight to Ponna. Firstly, what made you get into footy? And what is it about Liverpool that you love so much supporting them?
Thanks for the kind words, Matty. So I guess my family's we're Singaporean Indians. So my parents are from Singapore. My dad was a big footballer growing up. Played at a pretty decent level over there, and grew up in the 70s and 80s. So naturally was a Liverpool fan. My dad, will argue that Kevin Keegan's a better footballer than Maradona. It was his favourite player. So I guess it was always in my blood. And as far back as I can remember, I've been a Liverpool fan from the early days. I'm born in 1988, so the early days of my life were probably the dying embers of the great Liverpool side. Of the 80s, and naturally have endured some lean times. But as far as I can remember, I've watched Liverpool play. Going back to John Barnes, Ian Rush, those days. What do I love about the club? I think there's an awesome heritage. It's a great song, obviously, and great lineage and gone through some tough times, but the Klopp years have been fantastic, and I think we deserve what we've got at the moment, given what we've been through. So.
Absolutely. And, always with the big clubs, and we'll go to Shnu in a second with Man United, even when they go through their lean times, the three clubs here that we represent in the EPL, in particular, bye-bye, Phil, we can't see your video, that's okay, that's fine. What they do is when the lean times happen, right, they find ways to still win. So, for instance, Liverpool, when they went through that 30-year period, they at least still knew how to play in Europe, which was phenomenal. And, of course, that 05 Champions League against Milan, they won it dirty, like playing the ugliest football, but they found a way to win. And big clubs do that. And I think that's probably why you love them so much, because they're such a big club.
Yeah, I'm probably referring to the league there. We've had some cup success. We've had a, FA Cup, obviously UEFA. We had a year in 2001 where we won the secondary treble, shall we say, where we won the... Stop laughing, Vishnu. We won the League Cup, the FA Cup, the UEFA Cup, obviously 05.
You count the Super Cup as well there, come on.
But the league's the big one. I think any club in England really, the league's a big one, obviously. And we've had some interesting times. We've been close, but the side we've got at the moment is spectacular.
Yeah, well, I see a lot of similarities with what Arsenal's going through at the moment with Liverpool.
Yeah.
We've had our lean times. The year that you finished second was really, you deserved to win the league, but then it went really downhill. I think the year after you finished like seventh or even eighth, I'm not sure, but it was a huge decline, and it was the same with us. We were ready to really challenge for the league with Alexis Sanchez and Ozil. And of course, the 14, 15, 15, 16 period, we should have won it, but Leicester won that year. I think it was 2015, 16. And you've seen a decline with Arsenal, and we're starting to build our way back. I mean, I feel there's so much similarity with where we finished last year, eighth, rebuilding the team all the way up. But then we hit Man United, and of course, Vishy, you're born in 88, just like myself. And man, you would have loved watching United during the 90s and the Norths. I mean, they had the most sensational teams out of all of them teams.
Yeah, undoubtedly. It's been quite an enjoyable period having your formative years coincide with the reign of Sir Alex Ferguson, the master, the magician. He really turned, what was a very one-sided kind of Liverpool-dominated English top flight. Knocked them off their perch for a decade or so, has only really been overtaken by the oil money and Abramovich's billions at Chelsea. So I suppose we're going to probably need new owners, or at least a new CEO and way of doing business if we're going to really truly compete. But in Solskjaer we trust. So hoping for the best for this season. But this weekend's performance left a lot to be desired, and hopefully some players find some form pretty quickly.
Well, I think, the Liverpool, the United, the Arsenal way, I think our teams can be successful. Like, I remember Alex Ferguson's first runs, right? His first 5 years, he didn't win anything. But he built up this culture, he built up this stamina, just like what Klopp
They won that FA Cup, yeah.
Yeah.
That was pretty darn, yeah.
Yeah, but I bet he spent the time nurturing the team, getting them really disciplined. And, of course, Arsenal came in with Wenger and we played this flashy style of football. But then, what I think Ferguson did so well was his football was a bit more corporate, a bit more, it wasn't as flashy, but extraordinarily effective. And he utilised what he had with this team. His strength was this character. It was absolutely insane. And he
created good things, mate. That's what life's all about.
Yeah, absolutely. It's just insane. Just give me 1 second.
Can I say, Matty, have me on record here as saying the treatment of Arsene Wenger, right? He probably stayed on a bit too long. We all agree that. But I've got to say, the treatment of Arsene Wenger at the end I thought was disgraceful by the Arsenal fans. And like you like the grass is greener kind of theory, mate. Like you've gone through Emery, you've gone through Ljungberg, you've now got Arteta. But I've never seen anything like it. Like people calling for his head openly at games and that kind of thing. Yeah, I thought it was really disrespectful.
I think what Arsene Wenger really needed to do was, if he was upset, he should have done a Mourinho and actually called out the board, because the board haven't put anything towards, you know what I mean? They spent all this money on the Emirates, but the board, Kroenke, they gave him no money. He should have just come out to the fans and straight away and said, this is the problem. And of course, because people didn't hear that, they thought he was a gutless wonder. And I agree, I thought it was pretty terrible. But I could understand why, because, they're promised a thing in 2006 saying the reason why we're moving to Highbury is to win Champions Leagues and be able to beat Bayern Munich. And you see 3 years in a row, we lose to them 5-1 on return legs. So we had 2 years in a row where we lost 10-2 on aggregate. I would be pretty peeved if I was an Arsenal fan. I was peeved because you're given a promise and they just treat their fans like that. And of course, the tickets that we sell, they're way the more expensive in the whole league,
The most expensive season tickets and individual match day tickets, I think.
Yeah,
But the thing is with Arsene Wenger, and was one, he stayed on too long, and two, he had like he pretty much reported to himself. He was the director of football. He had a seat on the board. He was, like when we were kids and he got the job, we were like, oh, did he start this club? As a 10-year-old, you were thinking, oh, Arsene Wenger, maybe he owns Arsenal. Maybe that, little kids were thinking that. And it kind of turned out to be somewhat prophetic in that he pretty much reported to himself. He was there for so long. He was, in charge of everything that he couldn't turn around and blame the board when he was on the board. He couldn't turn around and say, oh, the people above me aren't getting me good players when he's the one in charge, right? He wasn't just the first team coach. He was, pretty much everything. And it's taken them for quite a while to, like, change the hierarchy structure and, like, the actual people, doing the job. So...
But he never changed.
I think the Arsenal fans realised that it really was all on him. So maybe that's what was needed to actually get him to leave.
But he was also very arrogant in the way that he never decided to change his tactics up. And he thought that his fourth team could actually outclass a Pep Guardiola team, or they could outclass, a fantastic Sir Alex Ferguson team. What I mean by corporate football as well, I think what Alex Ferguson did really, really well is that, his team, they weren't all about tricks, were they? When you watch really excellent Arsenal teams, they could flick balls everywhere. Everything was just crazy. Pires was out of control. Henry, dribble. But Alex Ferguson's team played proper, tough English footy. They had Scholes, they had Gibbs, they had Ferdinand. It wasn't all stars. It was just really effective, really, intuitive soccer, which I liked. But also it meant that they could just keep this brand of football going on for a long time because it was so easy to understand, so easy to feel like you were part of it, and they knew that they had somebody special with Ferguson.
Well, the thing is, I don't think it was deliberately easy to understand. I think it was a high quality level of unpredictability. So there was no, over dependence on, using a right winger or using a left winger or, using a central attacking midfielder. It was, well, we have players who are better than most, maybe not the world's best right winger or left winger or striker or whatever, but because they were like, say, if you're grading it like, not A+, but A, we had so many A players that, you could, go either way. You could go through the middle, go down the left, go down the right, and you'll, more often than not, you'll find gaps in a defense. And so good at winning the ball. Like if you watch highlights of, mid-90s games and, those games in the early 2000s as well, like 3/4 of the highlights are, just played in the opposition half. Like just the pressure on the opponent's defense is crazy, and like sometimes it does lead to crazy results like that 4-1 where Torres had pretty much 70% of the field to run up and slot a goal in, but for the most part it was so effective.
Yeah, I agree, Vishy. But I think this is what Liverpool's improved immensely. So we're going through, I think, our periods of where Liverpool had no success during these times. But what they did so well, what our teams did so well was like when we were at our top, it was like our midfield and our back line were both brick walls. Do you know what I mean? It was really, really hard to penetrate. And we were absolutely blessed with excellent goalkeepers as well. And so they could trust that defence and midfield so much that if the ball came through, it was a really excellent piece of play and they'd have to produce something special, which they were able to do because they didn't have to do it all the time. And that's what I see that's so great about the Liverpool team at the moment. They play this 4-3-3 style. And I think with the team that you're trying to get in now with all of your recruiting, I think you're going to try and play this 4-2-4. And it's like two bloody brute balls. can't penetrate that defence. And I think everything.
I think Van Dijk might be getting a little bit arrogant.
Sorry, I missed.
What do you mean?
So you saw, like, I don't know. He just seems to. I don't know. I think teams might look at trying to, press his particular area of the field a little bit more.
He obviously made a mistake in the Leeds game, but he's world class. But like I think, Matty, what you're saying, the way Liverpool have been set up has been tremendous, and there's obviously now cohesion in the side. They all know each other's games pretty well, and it's a pretty settled side. But going back to Arsenal.
Wait. Do you think Liverpool are going to be looking to let some players go?
I think people will naturally leave, mate, as the way. That's just the way it is. If you're not getting... At the end of the day, you can only give so many players game time, right?
Mm.
And if people aren't going to get game time, they're going to leave. And that's just the natural... That's just the... that's the reality of the situation. I mean, someone like Oxlade-Chamberlain, is he going to be around for much longer? I don't know. He obviously came to Liverpool because I think he came to Liverpool because he wanted to play in the middle initially. But I just don't see him playing much minutes, unless it's off the bench, especially now with Thiago that we've got. And, you've got Keita, you've got Thiago, you've got Fabinho, who plays in midfield, you've got Henderson, you got Milner there as well. He can play a few positions, but going back to Arsenal, Matty, I just want to say this, right? Like, Wenger didn't deliver like silverware. I get that, much silverware towards the end, mate. But what'd you finish last year? Like 8th?
Yeah, but that was also due to I think it was poor. We just played poorly during the season. I think it's also the aspect of it. I don't think Wenger really helped Emery in any sense of the way recruit a strong-ish team. I mean, he should have kept somebody like Oxlade-Chamberlain in the team because Oxlade-Chamberlain is a fantastic box-to-box player. He's a little runt, and he creates a lot of drive. But the issue that I think fans had with Wenger was that he never replaced Vieira. So we never had a CDM. So we could have this amazing attacking team, but we didn't have the crux of the structure,
No. Okay, so I don't have a video, but I'm having to listen to this stuff you're saying about Arsenal. I'm sorry. You're overlooking the biggest elephant in this room, which is that when Wenger came in, he bought all these European imports.
Yeah.
And they didn't drink beer, and they didn't smoke cigarettes, and they didn't go to nightclubs. They just wanted to win and train. And then that generation of Dutch and French players who he believed in, they just got old.
Yeah.
And we're never going to replace them. Who can replace Bergkamp? There's never been a player like him since. I think that's what happened. And Wenger, his conception of the game, which he must have developed in the 80s, by the thousands it was starting to die out a bit. And then, but the strength of his success and vision kept similar players coming. But by then the league had caught up. What do you reckon?
I think also he went. What was the main crux of that team? That 2000-2005 team, that region, they were big mofos. Those guys were absolutely huge. You would not want to fight any of them. I think he went too small, and I think he tried to have a smallish, quick team. But in the EPL, with your Manchester Uniteds, even your Liverpools, Carragher ain't a small guy. You know what I mean? He's a big lad. And you can't compete with that if your players are too small. What do you think, Bishy? I mean, the United players weren't altogether that small either,
Yeah, talented giants really is what Arsenal had. So did Man United and Liverpool for a little while there, Chelsea, of course. But the thing is, like, with Arsenal, like, they tried, like, quite hard to replace Vieira. Like, they had, Alex Song, they had Diaby, they had a few others.
Yep.
Never seemed to work, and I don't think Arsene Wenger knew how to kind of change his tactics and way of playing to the players he had. And
Yeah, but I think we are.
like,
I don't think we're giving Vieira as much respect as we should.
oh no, he is like irreplaceable. Like, Man United had to change the way they played because they no longer had Keane.
Keane, exactly. Right? Carrick, yeah. I mean, Man United replaced Keane a lot better than.
Yeah, well, but they had to change the way they played. They had to say, okay, we're going to need possession. We're going to need to keep the ball more, right? So that we're not making last-ditch tackles. We're not breaking up counterattacks as often as before. And we're going to drop Scholes back, 30 meters and get him to keep the ball alongside Carrick. And then use, Tevez, Rooney, Ronaldo, Berbatov, Nani, a little bit more on the counter. Whereas before, it would be like literally, Keane in the middle alongside, Stam and in the later years, Ferdinand, and, Mikel Silvestre, and everyone else is going forward because you knew between, Keane has got, the back door bolted. And once that changed, the way United had, were forced to play, had to change as well. And I just don't think Arsenal did that well enough. Like, obviously there are ways of playing, and then trying to, copy what Barcelona did. Like, it worked, I think, once when Wilshere had, the game of his life over in the Nou Camp. But, like, other than that, like, when did Wilshere, Ramsey, Oxlade-Chamberlain, you had that Brazilian guy,
we had quite a few different players. We had so many.
When did there's like less than 5'11" players? When did they ever? You had that really one great goal that I remember. That where Wilshere won the Goal of the Year award. But other than that, like, it's never really been that successful, and like Arsenal kind of turned themselves into a cup team.
Yeah. See, United had a 3D style of football, what I loved, and I think you described it. It's very three-dimensional, very four-dimensional. They could change everything up depending on who they had in the teams. Whereas I felt Liverpool and Arsenal, when Arsenal left their invincibles, Vieira was the crux of that team. Right? He was the crux, and we never replaced him. Liverpool had Gerrard, and when Gerrard left their team, man, you guys sucked for a while, and they were the heart and soul of the club. Whereas United were much.
Wait. I think you're getting that wrong there. Like, I think Liverpool were at their best when they had Alonso, Mascherano, and Gerrard in midfield.
Yeah, agreed. Agree with that.
Took ages for the who was the managers who tried to replace Alonso and Mascherano. You had like a decent list of them, and it just never worked. Like, and Gerrard kind of, if he had his time again, I don't know, maybe he should have moved to Chelsea or moved abroad. But in terms of his own career, but obviously you got to applaud the loyalty. But
well, we've changed the way that we've played, but I think Arsenal's problem now is the same that Liverpool's had for many years, and possibly United's problem now, which is holding on to their best players. And this was my frustration as a Liverpool fan, was that you've now got a bracket of clubs, right? Which you've got Barcelona, you've got Real, you've got maybe Man City, where people want to go to. And
I think Barcelona and Real might be losing their luster in terms of
possibly, maybe Bayern, possibly. But if I could trade one for me, the defining moment, which I thought this is not the same Arsenal that I grew up with, was when Robin van Persie went to Man United. I mean, that was just insane. And like you look at
wait, you don't think the procession of players from Arsenal to Man City was
true. True. I mean, you had Nasri, you had Clichy, you had who else went to City? I don't know, but
Nasri went to City as well.
Yeah. But I mean, look, Liverpool for many years we had
coming back to Arsenal.
Yeah, I mean, you obviously lost Cole to Chelsea, because he wasn't happy with getting paid You know what? 1% of the population get paid. But anyway, cash Cole. But anyway, so I mean, for many years, Liverpool we had guys come in and they do well for 2-3 years, right? You had Torres's, you had Suarez's, Xabi Alonso's, the Mascherano's. They'd be world class, and then it'd go. For some reason, we've managed to hold on to this squad. I really thought Mane would have gone last year to Madrid, to Real.
Well, they got no money. Most of Spain is skint, man.
Yeah.
Well, Madrid's they're also waiting for Hazard to get better and fitter and have a proper season. So, yeah, I agree with you. I thought Mane was out the door. I thought the little competition he's got going with Mohamed Salah, I thought they were going to kill each other for a while.
We'll talk about when we get to the games, Matty. We'll talk about those two because
you know the two of them. Yeah. If this was any other ownership period in like the last 30 years, other than what's it called, FSG, right?
I think so. Well, I just call us Kroenke owned, basically.
No. I mean the Liverpool owners. Like if it was any other owners other than the current ones, they would have left, right?
I tell you what Liverpool's done really.
They would have gone to Real Madrid, Salah probably either to Bayern or to Juventus or somewhere, because Liverpool wouldn't have paid like the wages that those guys probably do deserve. So,
I think that for me the challenge, to be honest with you, was the 2011 year where you changed coach back to Dalglish and you recruited really all of those English players and they all flopped. And I think through that period of time, you actually learned how to transfer properly. And when you brought in Klopp, he just slowly but surely fixed the spots that he needed to fix with the quality players that he wanted. And they weren't the biggest names at that time because they hadn't all of them performed in their leagues retrospectively. But they worked really well into his team. They worked really brilliantly in his philosophy. And I think that's why you guys are so good because you've learned how to recruit really, really effectively. I mean, this season with your two recruits, they're phenomenal. They're going to add so much more to the team and you've strengthened in the right areas. And I feel United and Arsenal, man, we've wasted so much money with sort of our recruits. Like for us, I'm really happy to have somebody like Pepe, who's $72 million transfer, but he's not worth that, in my opinion, even though I think he's a great player. And I think United have just wasted so much.
But where do you think, like, does Liverpool's additions, say over the since January, do they eventually become starters or are they just rotation players?
You're talking about Thiago and Diogo.
Yeah, so Jota, Thiago, Minamino, and I think the goalkeeper or defender, the Greek guy.
I think Thiago, obviously, for me, is in the starting 11. No, I mean, he's world class. And I think the one knock on our side is, that the midfield world class. I don't know. I mean, the front three is, the back four it definitely is, the goalkeeper is. Henderson and Wijnaldum are good players. They're good workmen, workhorses, but we're probably missing that jewel in the midfield there. But I think Thiago, is that for us, albeit probably a bit more defensive-minded than an attacking midfielder. But at the end of the day, we play a front three, right? And the creativity that the front three have are phenomenal.
You guys need to upgrade on Firmino.
Can I comment for a second on what you were just saying? So when we talk about the midfield not being that creative or whatever, totally understand what you see there. Henderson's never going to nutmeg a player. Fabinho might take the odd shot from distance like company there. But what Klopp, I think this is what Matty was trying to say, he's recruited the mentality of each player for the position and the function he wants them. They're like a bloody Swiss watch.
Yeah.
I've never seen a team where each person fulfills exactly what the coach wants them to do. Actually, the ones who fail the most are actually Salah and Mane, if you like, because he's said to them, look, 5 times out of 10 you get the ball, just keep it, but the other 5 times try something crazy. And I think there's a lot of pressure on them to try something crazy. And the other one that really surprises me, and I think we have to invent a new position in football, which is Firmino. The other day I watched the game on the weekend. He dropped back almost to his own penalty area to grab the ball and start something happening. Have you ever seen a striker do that before? I mean, Messi was the false 9. I think this is like the false 18, or you know.
Yeah.
I think he's the most underrated player in the
Rooney
league.
used to do that, but out of frustration. I think Firmino does it on purpose.
Yeah. I mean, it's just perfect for this team, right? Because at the end of the day, Salah and Mane are playing on the wings, but they are strikers, right? And he's just that egoless, false 9 that, is basically there to work hard, to have, high press, and to assist the other two. And he's brilliant. Like, I don't know who it was that said, is Firmino holding his weight in the side? I mean, absolutely.
No. I mean, do you think he will want to stay doing that job, or do you think Klopp will say, okay, we need someone who scores more goals in case Salah or Mane leave?
You're talking Firmino now?
Yeah.
Well, I think that another thing I watched. Sorry, I'll let the Liverpool expert talk in a second, but let you go for it.
Far from an expert, but anyway.
Firmino, I was just thinking, reminds me a bit of Viduka, in that he's actually a pretty big unit. He doesn't look fast, and incredibly quick feet, quick brain, but they don't play him in very often. He made a lot of good runs on the weekend that you would catch just on the corner of the telly. And you think, why didn't you play him in there? And I think, like a lot of Brazilians, like I noticed this with Lucas Moura for Tottenham on the weekend. By the way, you've got to feel sorry for him, haven't you, with Bale coming back? I mean, that's a player that tries every match to do something. And I see him make these runs, and they're not quick enough to, I reckon, play him in.
Yeah. Well, Firmino's obviously, Viduka's obviously a much bigger person. I mean, I think Viduka's 6'2", whatever it was. But I get your point. Like, Viduka was great in that sort of, that holding, what do you call it? Almost that target man that holds the ball up kind of thing. Firmino's not quite that, but I mean, he's very happy to defer to the other two. And Vishnu, to your point, like, do we bring someone else in to score goals? We don't need, like, Mane and Salah are contending for the Premier League top scorer award pretty much every year. And this is where squad selection then becomes if we bring someone else in that's a goal scorer, are they going to get the playing time? You know what I mean? And then if you bring them into starting 11, then your balance of your side is thrown out of whack, right? Because
so how does Klopp get Diogo Jota in the team?
Well, you play him off the bench. For me, you play him off the bench. You play him off the bench slowly. There's bound to be injuries. Salah and Mane are probably going to get injured at some point in time. You bring him in, and he's a young lad. You know what I mean. They obviously paid a lot of money for him. But
does he substitute Firmino for Jota, or does he substitute Mane for Jota? Or
that's a good question.
Where does Jota fit in?
Jota,
yeah,
I agree. He's off the bench for someone.
Yeah.
But Minamao, I mean, have you seen anything from this guy that suggests to you that he's gonna, wouldn't you just get rid of him, loan him out somewhere?
I don't know. I mean, I think what's really important is this year, depth of squad is the biggest factor of this season because of what happened with COVID and how everything's been pushed through. I mean, I've said this to you a lot of times. I mean, it's going to be really interesting to see who he replaces. I think potentially, I don't know who he's going to replace, but they will have to play him sometime in the Cups because there's too many games that Liverpool will be playing during this season. And I think it's going to be a great addition. And I reckon you can get somebody else that comes in through the academy as well, young blood. I think it's really, really, really important. Yeah, so...
talking about getting people into the team, what does Arsenal do with Mesut Ozil?
Great question.
You're not going to be in the team. You can tell that they can't play him. That's why Williams in the team. It's replaced him as the fake 10. So I think what they're trying to do is they're going to try and get Hossim Orr and they're going to try and get Partey. And Ozil will probably come in a couple of the cup games, but yeah, he's been booted off long ago because the way that we're structured with Arteta doesn't fit the system. He's too slow, and it's a real shame because we lack such big creativity. We were a joke against West Ham. West Ham battered us. We should have lost that game. And I was saying that to Phil the whole time when I was watching it. But the difference why Arsenal will get away with some results compared to United against Palace is because of our front three. Lacazette can kick goals. Aubameyang's world class. And it's, as I was saying, that's the biggest signing Arsenal's done in 16 years. It's the first time a captain in 16 years has stayed at the club because everybody else has left to go to other teams.
Matty, I'm going to go with what Vishnu just queried there. You said Ozil was slow. Are you serious? What I saw
I still think he's
last weekend,
Yeah.
it was like someone putting together a Meccano set without any instructions. They have no one with any brains or idea of how to. I mean, and he had the eyes in his head and the vision, and he looks slow. He's like Van Dijk. He looks slow, but he's always in the right place.
He's always in the right spot. Like, if anything, I think they should kind of drop him back and try and use him as like an 8. Get a good defensive midfielder alongside him and get him feeding in the balls to Pepe, Willian, Aubameyang,
Exactly.
and Lacazette. But
I reckon you're right, but I just don't think he wants to really be there. I don't think he's been part of that squad for 3 years, which is an utter shame. Because when he came in, when Arsenal was sort of looking a bit more threatening, him and Alexis had, I thought, one of the best partnerships. It was just a pleasure to watch. And it was a real shame that season where we came second, we didn't win a premiership that year because we were playing utterly sensational football. It was because of Ozil, it was because of Sanchez, but they got disillusioned with the process. I mean, Man U's going through the same thing, except that you're only halfway through it. We've gone 16 years of trusting the process. I mean, what does that even mean? You know what I mean? But I get hope because when I see Liverpool and they trusted the process for 30 years, that was pretty poor as well. But they managed to find a way to get there in the end. And it was just by really smart recruiting. And for me, the smartest thing that happened, even though it was really terrible, was the failings of 2011. I think there was a real crux moment of Liverpool Football Club where Downing, Andy Carroll came in, and it was an absolute disaster. And that's when they realised they needed to learn how to recruit. And United's going through this process now where teams are avoiding going to your team at the moment. They're avoiding transfers. They'd rather go to a crap Arsenal than go to United. They'd rather go to Spurs than go to United. They'd rather go to Liverpool. They'd rather go to City. It's really scary,
This is what I'm alluding to about the power of the brand of the club. And I think what's helped us is Klopp, definitely. People want to play for him. And if we look at the guys that we've lost, I mean, there haven't really been any, monumental losses in Klopp's time that haven't been able to be replaced. Well, I think Arsenal's have struggled with that, and I think United are now struggling with that potentially. It's City. If you look at City, for example, everyone wants to play for Guardiola, right? And yeah, I mean, you can't build a side when people are coming in and out. People are coming for 1 or 2 years, then they're leaving.
Well, we haven't had that many people leave. It's been just a lack of getting people in the door. Like, we can't actually, one of the biggest problems this European summer is the inability to get the players we no longer use out the door. I think me and a couple of other Man United supporting friends, we put together a bit of a spreadsheet as us accountants do, and put together a list of 9 players that we don't think we've seen play in about 6 to 8 months, costing potentially in transfer fees probably about 80 to 100 million. and in terms of salary, probably about 1.2 to 1.3 million pounds a week. And we're just like, you know, of course, they're on like ridiculous, generational, set up your, multiple generations of your family, up for life kind of income. So, you can't begrudge them of that. But if you really enjoy playing football, you would want to move to another club that would allow you to play football. But when you're earning 140, 150,000 a week, you can see why they're not. But yeah,
I got a question for you.
Go ahead.
So, sorry to interrupt, but like I'm a big fan of Juan Mata, and I haven't watched a lot of United the last couple of years because I just couldn't understand what kind of football they were trying to play. But it seemed like every time he came on, he made something happen. Are you a fan of his, or do you think he's part of those 9 who should have?
I thought, like, I am a fan of his, but I thought he would have left given his lack of playing time, and he's like genuinely like a lover of the game and loves to play. And given how little he was playing, I thought he would have left, and probably would have been one of those kind of saleable assets where we would have actually gotten some transfer money in. And I think maybe COVID has kind of taken the funds out of the market. Like maybe he could have gone to Valencia or Villarreal or, one of the kind of smaller teams in Spain or Italy or something. But yeah, because I don't think he's still got that kind of acceleration needed at the very top of the game. So that's why, like, you see his impact being more kind of technical and picking really good through balls, but from much like closer to the opposition goal. So it's like less effective. Like you already need to be dominating a game to bring Mata on to find you the assist from like 25 yards to Martial or to Rashford or something. But when you're not dominating the game, he's not as effective, 40 meters, 40 yards from goal.
But for me, there were 3 signings that I think really killed United over the last 6 or 7 years and have scared really good players to come in. So one is Di Maria, him flopping. I think Sanchez flopping as well was another thing. And then Bastian Schweinsteiger.
He was a waste. Why the hell did they buy him? Yeah. He was a rust bucket, that guy.
Yeah, but he was done. He was done by the time he went there.
Yeah, but I mean, like you're seeing quality players flopping at United.
Yeah.
The thing is, there's 3 completely different stories about why those guys were signed and why they didn't work.
Yeah.
So Schweinsteiger was pretty much the person to be the eyes and ears for Van Gaal.
Mm-hmm.
Van Gaal didn't really care whether or not he played. He just wanted a leader in the dressing room.
Yeah.
So, and like everyone knew his knees were gone. He wasn't playing at Bayern. He was, given his farewell from the German national team. It was pretty much done, right?
Mm.
So I think that was just stupid, like, okay, we have to show that we're backing the manager, and this guy says he wants Schweinsteiger, so we can't, like, not.
Then they got Falcao.
Yeah.
Did I dream that, or did that actually happen? That he was great.
Yeah, that was a fever dream, man. That was like COVID-17 fever dream that the whole world experienced. But yeah. But obviously, we got him like 6 weeks after he had his ACL surgery, and Monaco were like, "Do you want to just help him with his rehab?" And for some stupid reason, supposedly the biggest club in the world said yes.
But
which is absolutely crazy. Di Maria came. He looked to be okay. Van Gaal didn't know really how to use him.
Yeah.
And after his wife and kid got held at gunpoint and in a house robbery, they wanted to leave. They're like, no, why the hell did we leave Madrid for this? Right? And so he never settled. So And Sanchez,
Yeah, but
like,
he
literally, he wanted to go back to Arsenal after one training session.
yeah,
Like,
I know.
I don't know who was in charge of doing the transfer. You know, do you want to come? Obviously, he may have said no. Like, I think this transfer was more about moving
Mkhitaryan.
Mkhitaryan out because he'd fallen out with Mourinho, and they've gone, okay, who can we kind of fob Mkhitaryan off to? And Arsenal was like, yeah, we'd like him. And then someone at Man United has just gone a bit, you know, negotiating power trip, going, if you're going to have Mkhitaryan, we want Sanchez. But yeah, I don't think Sanchez ever really wanted to come, and it kind of showed, right? Like,
Yeah, but I mean, this.
Patrice Evra said it really perfectly. Like, Raphael said it really perfectly on Instagram. It was like, it looked as though you were drunk or high or both every time you got on the field.
But I mean, this is the problem that I see, and it's because when you make really poor transfers like that, it creates a lot of doubt into people wanting to come back into the club. I mean, they're four big names and four players that have flopped. I mean, it doesn't send an exciting message or a very inspiring message for people to go to United. They might as well go.
The ins are a problem. Like, some of the players we've allowed to leave is also another problem. Like, why do we keep Jones and let Evans go? Like, he's literally left and gone and won the title at less, like, replaced Maguire when we bought Maguire, and they're like, dude, we think we've got an upgrade plus 80 million for Maguire. It's just crazy. Raphael should have stayed, and Herrera should have stayed.
I get Maguire though. I mean, I look at the guy and I don't see a footballer at all. He's got an odd style. I remember Alex Ferguson said about the current Liverpool captain. That's why he wasn't interested in him, because he didn't like his running style. But Maguire's got great feet with the ball, and don't you think his distribution is almost Yapstam-esque?
Yeah,
Yapstam.
He can certainly pass the ball, but like, that's a midfielder's job, really, and like, maybe keeping the ball out of our goal is probably the number one priority, and he's not doing it. It's like, just the game against Crystal Palace is like, dude, how do you allow Wilfred Zaha to shoot from that distance and, give him that much space?
Yeah.
I tell you what, you guys really, like, with Maguire, he's not bad, but you really needed to have got Gabriel from us, because he went to us. He would have been instrumental.
Yeah. What do you guys think of the way they're interpreting the handball rule this season? United copped a raw deal, but what do you guys think?
I think it's really clear with what's going on. I think it's like they're just saying if the hand is in an unnatural position, they're just going to ping them. And they're just saying defenders just have to be aware. Don't have your arms dangling out, otherwise you're gone. I mean, I don't personally agree with a lot of the stuff, but I think that they're pretty clear. I think if their hand's in any sort of unnatural position, it's stuffed. You know what I mean? So I think the rawest deal that you guys got though was, God, that penalty. It should have been a stop. De Gea stopped that. He did not come off that line at all. I've seen far worse. That was.
Yeah, I agree. I see that happen all the time, I think. But with the handball,
the thing is, when you're moving, like, Premier League has gotten, professional football, especially in Europe, has gotten so fast that to move at that speed and to keep your balance, you need to be moving your arms. You can't run with your arms behind your back, right? Or arms, firmly fixed to your side. How are defenders and midfielders supposed to move at the required speed without generating power from their arms?
They really need to rewrite the law. I think they need to really rewrite. It's not nothing to do with ball to hand. It's got nothing to do with ball to hand anymore. It's got to do with where your hand needs to be when the ball hits. Because if your hand's in an unnatural position and the ball hits your hand, it's a handball every day of the week. Do you guys remember PK's? Was it against Russia in the 2018 World Cup? Do you remember that? Where the ball came from behind him? And I looked at that And I was probably wrong in the end because I looked at it and I thought, the ball's come from behind him. There's no way. The ball's obviously hit his hand, right? But under the interpretation of the handball law, it's a handball every day of the week, right? Because it's your unnatural position. But I think they need to probably rewrite that law.
Absolutely.
To clarify that.
I want to add my 2 cents here. I bloody hate VAR. I mean, I like goal line technology, but VAR, I think the game is played by people and the game is reffed by people.
Yep.
And there's a kind of spirit about that, and they make mistakes. And I think trying to make it run like a computer, eventually what will happen is if we get too much VAR, they're going to have dancing girls like American basketball. I mean, I'd rather see that than listen to them mull over some stupid decision about whether he had his hand in the right position. Fuck, come on. Refs can see that stuff. They get the spirit of the game. They get it wrong. I think everyone just has to deal. And I don't care if they meant it. I don't even care if they fake penalties. If you can con the ref, that's part of the game. Because let's face it, every foul, every time that a ball goes in, you could put VAR on it, and you could argue until the end of time about how many defenders and attackers were pulling and pushing each other to get the ball and slow it in super slow motion, and you'd never get to the end of it. So that's a strong opinion.
The Christensen red card, I thought that would have been a perfect example of the ref doing his job. It wasn't clear or obvious that he had made an error in giving a yellow, right?
Oh, that was a red, Vishnu. I mean,
well, no.
Mane gets to that. He goes around the goal. It's goal scoring opportunity, right?
It's red, clear red.
No, but what I'm saying is the actual interpretation of when to use VAR, it wasn't clear and obvious that he had made an error. The ref had made a judgment that between the goalkeeper and the distance and the speed at which the ball was going, that it wasn't a clear goal-scoring opportunity, hence why it was only a yellow. He's made that decision. He hasn't missed the incident completely or, missed the fact that it was violent conduct or something. He's seen, okay, that's a tackle that could have been a clear and obvious goal-scoring error goal-scoring opportunity if the keeper hadn't come out, right?
You're saying who makes a decision to go to VAR?
I'll be straight red all day, every day, don't even bother complaining. But the fact that the keeper had come out, the ball was kind of in between, meant that, okay, there's some doubt in the referee's mind. So why is VAR getting involved?
Yeah.
What's your point? I mean, sort of that was a rugby tackle. I absolutely hate that in football when someone puts two arms around another player that's beaten them for pace and has a better touch. I think that should be a red card anywhere on the pitch. And,
that would be hilarious because I think in the Spurs game they tried it 3 or 4 times, probably against Son and Harry Kane, and they would have been down to 8 players or something if that was a red card every time it happened.
It'll ruin the game for a little while, and people will complain and say the refs are being too harsh. But I'd actually rather see the tackle from behind be brought back rather than this rugby bullshit.
Rugby style pulling shirts and doing whatever. Hey Phil, by the way, what are your thoughts of Leeds and their high scoring nature? Scoring goals, conceding goals. Is it fun as a Leeds fan, or is it
You've got me excited. You've got me excited now, Vish, and I'm a little bit trembling because they've done so well, haven't they? Let's face it. That game was the football that I grew up watching. That had penalties, it had dribbles, it had midfield vision, it had scrappy sections, it had really tight sections, it had defenders thinking they could waltz up and dribble half the pitch before releasing the ball. How often do you see Man United do that?
Harry Maguire tries and usually gives the ball away.
That's right. There was a guy called Laurent Blanc, and he scored an incredible goal for Inter once, where he just waltzed up the middle of the pitch. There was an early goal. There was a large lead. There was a strong comeback. It was crazy. I just love this game. One thing I did notice is that Leeds take a long time over throw-ins. Have you seen this? That must be a world record. Every throw they took about 40 seconds. And then that doesn't seem to fit with the rest of the Bielsa game where they just kind of take every risk you could possibly imagine. So I've got high hopes for them, but I worry a bit. See, the way Liverpool played against them, They were like a Cadillac, or let's not say American things, a Rolls Royce just purring, and they'll last the whole season purring like that. Whereas Leeds, they might run out of adrenaline, don't you think? It's a bit adrenalized.
Yeah. Do you think Bamford's good enough to score enough goals to keep you up?
You know, I made a note about him that because he missed that easy chance, easy, you know, he's not easy for us, but in the first match, but then Van Dijk did that thing that you called arrogant, I believe, where he was being a PlayStation version of himself for a second. Because Bamford scored, now his confidence is back.
Yeah.
And now that he's confident, I mean, he actually took on a player for pace. He took on their right back on the weekend against Fulham for pace and beat him. So he's another one that kind of maybe looks slow. I think he'll get a lot of chances, but I agree with you. He's not a clinical finisher, is he? He's an effort guy.
I just got to say, it's so good to see Leeds back in the Premier League. Like that, they belong in the Premier League. You know, they're a big club. You know, I've just been living with a Leeds supporter for the last 6 months who's chuffed at the fact they're back in. You know, but I really do believe that they'll stay up this year, and I believe they deserve to. At the end of the day, they're scoring goals. That's half the job. You know, the defence does look a bit shaky, but they just add something, I think, to this league, and I hope they stay up. The game against us, that Harrison kid's, I believe he's on loan from Man City.
Yes.
Phenomenal touch to bring that ball down. And that was a beautiful goal.
Yeah.
You know, they've got the new Spanish kid, Rodrigo, I believe, who's playing for Spain. And I think, once again, this alludes to my point. It's the manager in football makes a massive, massive deal in terms of their profile, right? People want to play for people like Bielsa. People want to play for people like, I know Klopp's obviously, you know, possibly you could argue at a different level, but people want to play for these sort of guys. And I think, you know, I feel you'd probably be very excited about this year.
I'm sorry, I can't hide it. I look at someone like Calvin Phillips there, like he's kind of the next kind of Scholes, that ball out to Harrison in the first match. Helder Costa. And so I reckon it's sort of like this. You imagine if you were a footballer and you got promoted to the Premier League and your coach said to you, look, you're lucky to be here. They're a big team. Just be very careful. Don't lose the ball. Backtrack. Stay on your blade of grass. And you'd be terrified and you'd do it. But in your dreams, the manager says, fuck them. Go out there and play your socks off and try stuff. And I won't be angry. I mean, that's what you wish the coach would tell you, right?
You know, I also saw this in the game with Everton and West Brom. It was full of goals as well. I reckon Ancelotti is just absolutely crushing it with Everton at the moment. They look really good. James Rodriguez is absolutely on fire. Ancelotti knows how to play him. He gets them all free. Their number 9 kicks a hat-trick as well. I mean, it was just a pleasure to watch. But they look like the real deal. They've got this aura about them finally. I think, as I was saying to you, Phil, I reckon Leeds games are going to be great to watch. I reckon the best derby this year is definitely going to be the Liverpool and Everton. They look awesome. I reckon it's going to be a cracker of a game. But it's this creativity that I'm seeing. James, man, he was on fire against West Brom. Like, they were playing crap for 30 minutes. He just, 2 touches of magic, you know. Absolutely phenomenal. That goal that he kicked, it was just absolutely world class. Yet he's really struggled with other things. And I allude to your point, Ponna. The manager is a huge, huge factor. Absolutely massive, you know.
Mate, imagine us growing up, right, back in the 2000s. On what world does a guy like James Rodriguez, who's played for, you know, some of the biggest clubs in the world, go to a club like Everton, right? I'm not that's no disrespect to Everton, right? They've obviously got a great history, but, you know, they're not a top 6 club. You know what I'm saying? You look at what's happened at Wolves with all the Portuguese players there. Like, there's no doubt the Premier League's the best league in the world right now. And, you know, like Rodriguez is, I don't even think he's 30. Well, how old is he? Like 29, 28, 29? You know, he's not that far removed from I think he won a Golden Boot, didn't he, at the World Cup?
Yeah, 2014.
Yeah, just
Biggest
phenomenal.
shock ever that I agree with you that he went to Everton. Can't believe it still.
Oh, and
As well.
Freak.
Everton ended up not paying a transfer fee.
What?
yeah,
Really?
Unbelievable.
Absolutely crazy. Like, how is he not being offered to like some of the biggest clubs in Europe and still choosing to meet up again with Carlo Ancelotti? That amazes me.
Insane.
insane.
Guys in United, he should have been going there. Like Bale should have gone there as well, But it's because managers, I feel like for once we're being finally taken seriously at Arsenal because I think Arteta's managed to do a great job. I can't believe he kept Aubameyang. Even Phil can't believe it. I can't believe he signed for us again. I mean,
well, I actually have a feeling that may have just been no one else was kind of in the right position financially to give him what he wanted.
Well, you've heard the rumours, haven't you? You got offered a massive contract at Barca, and you also got offered a massive contract at Inter, and turned them down. They were going to be 450,000 euros a week minimum. Because he turned that down for our 300. I think it was 200.
Where would he play at Inter? They've got Lukaku, they've got Martinez, they got a whole bunch of wingers. Does he really want to play under what's his name?
And Conte.
Well, he uses a freaking left wing back if he went to Inter. That would just be horrible. And Barcelona's a shamble at the moment.
Oh, absolutely. But Liverpool, man, crushed Chelsea. That was a very.
I just watched the game again today, and I mean, the front three were just phenomenal. Interesting, Fabinho moved to back to centre back, and I think a lot of people had him man of the match. It's just phenomenal in terms of his quality on the ball at centre back. So I do rate Joe Gomez. I think he's very underrated. But yeah, it just gives us an additional option. You can play Gomez, you can play Matip with his fit, you can play Fabinho, and then that's the first goal though was just stuff out of dreams. The 1-2, the Salah Fabinho 1-2, the cross to Mane, it was just sensational. And
the power on the cross was just like perfect in that. Just the header just needed that direction and a little bit of power, but the ball had everything that it needed.
And you look at Fabinho. He's your number 9, and he's putting in balls like that. I mean, he's a unique player. I know Harry Kane had a phenomenal game as well for Tottenham, and you could say he's a number 9, but he's a number 9 obviously. But I thought and for me, my favourite Liverpool, I know people talk about Salah, people talk about Van Dijk, but I think Sadio Mane is just phenomenal. He's just a phenomenal footballer. And I was actually, I went to the Liverpool, we've got a Liverpool fan club over here at the Northbridge Doubletree. You guys won't know where that is, but I thought I'd give that out. But
I haven't exactly where that is.
Matty, you know. But I was there for one of the latter games, towards the end of last season, shall we say. And there was this guy that who was, I forgot his name, but he's originally from Scunthorpe in England. He's grown up a Liverpool fan. He would have been probably in his 60s. Probably would have seen the whole gamut. And I sat down with him. He's one of the original Liverpool fans in Perth. He's back, and English guy. And I sat down with him, and he reckons Mane would be in his all-time Liverpool 11, which is a massive call. Because, I mean, this guy would have seen everybody, mate. He would have seen Inrush. He would have seen, probably even Roger Hunt play. And I'll just look at Mane. I just go, I know Carragher said just recently that he's rivaling John Barnes on your left wing,
Oh, yeah. Hey, I just want to pick something you said about Fabinho. He got moved to fullback. And a couple of times, Werner was running with the ball at him, and Fabinho guessed correctly and put Werner off both times. And that's a bit of Brazilian magic right there. He again, he looks too big and too slow to be able to cope with that, but he did it easily. And I thought Werner, if Werner had a slightly better game, I think Liverpool could have gone down, gone behind. I mean, excuse me. Yeah. But,
well, Chelsea are going to have some interesting problems in getting the best out of all their new recruits.
Haven't gelled yet.
Is their problem, to be honest. I think you can have a great defence, but if you have a bit of a has-been of a keeper like him,
he was awful, mate. He was terrible. But I think I don't know if I'm the only person to say this, but I was talking to a friend of mine today who's a Liverpool fan. But I don't know about you guys, but it felt like Chelsea were just dicking around with the ball in the box for a lot of the game. I know that Lampard's trying to play that sort of pass out from the back type role, and I know that for football, and I know that Liverpool played a high pass game. I don't know, it just felt like they would just play one-touch football in their box for a lot of game, and obviously kept it that second goal. But he's been. I reckon he's not up to it. Or he's fluffed his lines a lot of the big moments. He must be a Loris Karius ending delay. I don't want to hear those names again, but I think they miss Courtois. They need to get a better goalkeeper.
Oh, they needed to have got Emi Martinez. Villa killed it with Martinez. That guy's a freak. Just stops everything, you know what I mean? You need an excellent keeper. You can have the best.
Why isn't he your number one then?
Why? Because they spent all this money on Leno. And I mean, just think of it as a business terms. 6 months ago, Emi hadn't played any games really with us. He's been in the club for 10 years, worth £1.2 million, right? He plays 6 months of footy because Leno's injured. And then his evaluation is 20 million. I mean, it's over 10 times or 15 times the amount of money, of course, I can see why he's gone, but I'm not happy about it. But like us, our top doesn't look after us enough, and we have to fund everything from our sales to get our players. So, of course, that 20 million, if it goes towards getting a Partey, or even 10 million to getting this new bloody keeper that we've got, who I don't rate, but then that 10 million goes towards a Partey or transfer, well, they have to do it. And it's a real shame because I think Emi's was our best keeper. And it's a huge, huge indictment on the club. We should have kept both of them. But so many club games, Yeah.
You don't think Leno's the new Jens Lehmann?
No. No chance. No, but I think he's much better, though, than Kepa. I really do. He is far, far better than Kepa. And that's going to be Chelsea's Achilles heel. And I think if Lampard doesn't actually work out other strategies...
I think they've already kind of in the works in terms of getting a replacement. Edouard Mendy, or is it Traore? One of them.
I noticed that after he made that kind of mistake, which also you've got to give Mane an incredible amount of credit because Mane made a slightly less than perfect ball. And what did he do? He did that thing where he just decided, I'm
just a viper.
And so Frank Lampard is responsible for that goalkeeper's mistake in a way because, first of all, Frank did well because after that, the team kept passing the ball back to Leno, right? They didn't stop doing it. They said, get back on the horse, which means they believe in him, basically. And he's a young keeper. If you're a goalkeeper, you don't want people passing you the ball inside your box with Liverpool pressing you, do?
Yeah.
You want the coach to say, listen, for today's match, we're not going to ask you to have the feet of a Neuer. We're just going to ask you to belt the ball up, which is basically they should have done that anyway, right? Because the little tiki-taka didn't work, did it? It was appalling.
Bill, but I know how much you love Lampard, but as a manager, I don't think he's got it. I think Arteta bossed him in the FA Cup. Honestly, he should never have lost that game in the FA Cup. We're an absolutely pathetic team. And so allow us to batter them like that in the FA Cup was an utter joke. Because Chelsea was much better than us through that season, even though we had close games. I mean, Leeds manager, Klopp, they're just far better managers in my opinion. As much as I love Lampard as a footballer, I just don't think he's got it in him. But,
he doesn't have the experience yet. So,
Arteta, I'm sorry, Arteta has much less experience. He's never coached a team before. Won a cup within 7 months.
Yeah, you guys are a cup side though, Matty. You do very well in cups.
We finished 8th with a
Yeah,
big.
They're a cup team.
You're a cup team. You like, Liverpool used to do okay in the cups as well back in the days.
We're crap. We're crap.
Yeah, back in the days when you used to win the Champions League.
Yeah, man.
Not last year.
Yeah, man, you can win Champions League. What do we do? Far out. Community Shield, number 4. Here we go, boys. That's no, but I'm just saying, a coach like that with Lampard's, with what Chelsea's got with that team, I'm sorry, they should never have lost to Arsenal in that cup. They should have melted back in the Europa League the year before because we're that bad. We're that bad.
Let's look at another Lampard odd decision for me. That I don't know if Giroud was injured, but in the old traditional English football, you had one player who was big to hold up the ball, and another player was quick to get the knockdowns and run off them. And I was just wishing the whole match that Giroud would come on and do that, so that Werner could do that. But he didn't. I don't know why didn't he?
Because a lot of players think Giroud's way too slow, and that was what Arsenal fans thought. And I think we really miss him up forward because he's one of those players that's like a bully. He attracts a lot of players towards him because he stops the ball, and then he allows players like Alexis back in our team to be able to break across, because he attract all these players. And Alexis and all them and Ox, they would all just take the scraps. I mean, the perfect example of what Giroud did was the 2017 FA Cup. Wenger put him on, right, after, what was his name? Costa scored the goal, right? And nobody was near him because they thought he was so slow. He ends up having this free run all the way into the box, crosses it through to Ramsey, and Ramsey headers it, and they win the FA Cup. That's why Giroud is so useful because people don't rate exceptional skill though. In terms of that. And what he does in the French team is fantastic because he allows Lacazette to crumb because he's this big boy. I mean, he's a presence. He's a very underrated footballer.
He's like a sort of a poor man's Lewandowski, isn't he? He's sort of a
footballer.
But he did win the World Cup with France.
Liverpool are playing Arsenal this coming match week. How do you guys see that going?
I'd be disappointed with anything less than a win from me, but no disrespect, Matty.
Or like you'd be disappointed with less than like a 3-goal victory? Or...
I think it's at Anfield as well, isn't it? Yeah. Oh no, look, you can never say that, Vishnu. I mean that's the beauty of the Premier League, right? Anybody can beat anybody on any day. I think that's what makes the Premier League special. If you look at La Liga, the top 3 or 4 teams are excellent, and the bottom 3 or 4 teams are rubbish, right? No offense to La Liga, but I think
most of the other leagues in the world really are like that now.
Yeah, I think we want to win games like that at home, but anything's possible. Anything's possible, and
go for it, man. Sorry.
And I was going to say, look, the one thing I've got to say as a Liverpool fan, as a fan of football, is I want a strong Arsenal. I want the big clubs to be strong. It's not good, and I guess I'm not English, and I guess there's some of the hatred for rival clubs and that kind of thing, and Arsenal fans hating Tottenham, Tottenham, and vice versa, us hating Everton. I'm not like that. I want to see the best clubs doing well because I want to see the best football played, and to see yourselves struggle a little bit, to see, a club like Leeds go down and stay down for so long. I don't like stuff like that. To see United go through this patch. I don't like that sort of stuff. I want to see a strong Premier League. It's been so great to see Tottenham do relatively quite well, I think, compared to Tottenham of yesteryear. Have they had their run? Possibly. Possibly. I mean, Eriksen's not there, Vertonghen's not there. That Tottenham side is that made the Champions League final last year. It's probably, not there. But
the thing is, right? Like, I think it's almost like a not oxymoron, but it's kind of you can't really have the way things were, right, with the traditional big clubs being strong, given the relative equality of TV money for all the teams. So like you don't see as many transfers from mid-table teams to, top of the table teams anymore. Like how long has it been since like an Arsenal or a Man United, buying a player from a Spurs or an Everton that Spurs or Everton didn't really want to sell? And so like the rise of Wolves, the rise of Leicester, the rise of Spurs to an extent, the rise of,
Southampton.
Southampton, West Brom, not West Brom, West Ham, in terms of getting and keeping a hold of players that see them, if they were run properly, they would all be like top 8, top 9 teams, means that, the top of the traditional top of the table clubs can't, steamroll the rest of the league as they used to. So maybe the lack of strength at at Man United and Arsenal is due to the fact that everyone else is getting stronger.
Yeah, but I mean, my thoughts are on this though. I see where you're coming from, but I mean, you can't expect top teams to be top teams all the time. There's always going to be a unique team that makes that top team so good. And you're going to have periods where it goes down. I mean, the perfect example, the Aussie cricket team, man. They were so good for so long, but they've never recaptured back then. No, they won't, because it was a once-in-generation team. I mean, the United team was a once-in-a-generation team. They were phenomenal. The Arsenal Invincibles, they were a once-in-a-generation team. I mean, Liverpool's starting to create their dynasty. It'll always go around in circles, and I'm sure, and I agree, it's going to be harder. But what the big teams do, even when we're in banter eras, is the big teams still win cups and they win trophies. They win silverware. When they're back. United. Look at United. This is one of their most banter eras. They still won the crap treble. You know what I mean? They won a Europe. They won cups. And they were a rubbish team. I didn't rate that team at all. But they still found a way to win. We found a way to win 4 FA Cups in 6 years, and this has been by far, in the last 40 years, the worst Arsenal team in history. They find ways to win trophies. And, what I think Spurs really missed the mark with, they have a phenomenal team. Pochettino did a fantastic job. He needed to win a trophy to keep them really relevant.
He needed a holiday and a couple of players. He didn't need the sack.
I think Pochettino did a tremendous job with them. I think it was unlucky, to be honest. Yeah, I mean, I get your point. And Arsenal is a great example of winning FA Cups, from lots of FA Cups, for example. United had a bit of a drought with the FA Cup, didn't you, Vish?
Yeah. Sir Alex went quite a few years without winning it.
Yeah.
At the end, and then Van Gaal won it and then got sacked, and then we haven't won it.
Yeah. But I guess the league's a big one, and the interesting thing, Matt, is that there are lots of Arsenal fans our age, right, that have grown up with Arsenal, but it's been a long time since you guys have won a league. What was it? 2004 was your last win.
Yeah.
That's a long, long time. That's 16 years.
We're doing a
I know.
You're a Liverpool fan. That's golden.
No. I get that, but like, I get that, but like, it's like
dirty with which you've said that.
No, I know that, but it's like there's lots of, like, I still look at Arsenal as a big club. Like, they're still a big club to me.
In London, man, without a doubt.
They're a big club to me, but it's been, it's been a while, and I think, I'd like to. Yeah, you're right about this being the worst era I've seen of Arsenal play.
Yeah, but
that I can remember.
Yeah, but they still win things, and I think what Arsenal has done well is that at the back end of last year, he was able to beat you guys even though you were at the beach for a bit. But then he also did a good job in the Community Shield. We should have not won that game because let's face it, that was our C grade team against nearly your A grade. There was a couple missing from you guys.
Yeah, well, we did have an 18-year-old take a penalty, but you know,
bloody hell, Nanny sideways passing the ball in our mid.
Okay, so we've got to have an award here. I've just thought of two categories. One is stupidest transfer, which for me was Ericsson being sold from Tottenham. I don't care if Mourinho wins the World Cup. That was just dumb. And other thing is you talking about Arsenal.
Potentially Inter want to sell him already.
Sorry, what?
Inter want to get rid of Ericsson, according to the reviews.
I just don't get it. As a football player, when I watch him, I just think he's incredible, even though he has no attributes. But Matty, when Leeds beat Arsenal, I want to be there to see your face because Leeds is going to beat Arsenal this.
Yeah.
And by the way, if your team keeps winning cups while playing the worst football and being a terrible team, they're going to get really badly hated by every single person in the world. So you're in for a rough ride, man.
I don't care though, because that's the
like it talks about like we can tell like Maddie's expectations are like through the roof if he says this is the worst team in 40 years and they just won the FA Cup. Like, dude, what do you want? Like the treble every year?
No. What I'm saying is with Arsenal, we've been able to keep relevant through a banter club because by winning FA Cups, it means that we play European football when we're very poor. That's
Europa League.
Well, I don't care about Europa League, but for players who want to come into the team, who want to be transferred there, they want to play European football. They don't care if it's Champions League or Europa League. A lot of the footballers will go, well, it's great to be able to play in Europe. It's great to play in those cups because it's a lot of exposure. It's more games. And also it makes you feel prestigious as a footballer. I don't care if it's the UEFA Cup. I don't care if it's the Champions League. But I think it's why, even through an era that's been really poor, we've been able to do. We've still been able to stay as a big club, just like United has, because they still get their Champions League, they still get their Europa League. I mean, the year that Chelsea won the Premiership, which was 17, right? They were very fortunate that year to win it because they didn't have any European football, so they were able to keep their squad a lot more, intact. They didn't have to play anywhere near as many games because they had no Europe, and they won the league because of it. I mean, that's why we find it so hard because our depth of squad isn't good enough. The quality of players isn't good enough. I mean, that Crystal Palace performance, I mean, I feel very sorry for you guys because I've seen 5 years of that crap. I've seen
that was such a convincing argument for Arsenal that I think I'm going to change my colours. And you sold it.
But the thing is, like the fact that you're equating Europa League football and Champions League football in terms of being a draw for like the top players, I think that's like one of the biggest problems. Like in that, the very very top players see a massive difference between Europa League and Champions League football.
Yes.
And it was like probably one of the reasons why we didn't get as many of the top players in the last 4 or 5 years is that we couldn't guarantee Champions League football. And I think, maybe that's a sign of the times that you're okay with Arsenal not being in the Champions League.
No, I mean, we haven't had the issues that you've had of drawing top quality footballers. I mean, we've had Ozil in the team. We've also had Sanchez, who was fantastic when he was there. I mean, we have Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang, who I think is probably one of the world's best strikers. He's signed on. He would love to play Champions League football, but they stay on because we've still been able to get quality players in the team. I
think that's the London effect, mate.
But it's the spine of the team for us that's the issue. It's always the defence. That is Arsenal's huge problem. They've never been able to fix Vieira, and they've never been able to fix that CDM spot. And I swear that's the reason why we've been so poor. It's honestly, that spine is our huge issue. And the CDM spot, we've never been able to replace Vieira, and that's our Achilles heel. And until we do, we will be irrelevant.
You had Gilberto with Vieira.
Wow,
that just made things even worse.
Irrelevant. Surely that's a good place to leave it.
No, but I mean, if you want to be a big club and you want to be the best, you need to be relevant with what you're doing. And if we don't decide to fill these gaps, which we haven't done in 16 years, there's a reason why we haven't won Premier Leagues. It's because we haven't addressed those issues. We're acting like a small club. United's doing the same thing too. They're acting like small clubs, even though they're big clubs. And it's a real shame. But the fact that Wolves, Everton, West Ham, Leeds act bigger than us is the Achilles heel for our teams. Honestly, I swear to God that is our problem. And, I mean, Leeds should beat us. Look at their transfers. They've obliterated what a United and Arsenal have. You combine both of our transfer fees together and you still won't equate to Everton's and you won't equate to Leeds' fees. I mean, it's an utter joke.
Well, it comes down to the ownership, really.
Yeah.
Well, it's all one organism. So Leeds, you probably, if you took every single Leeds player and every single Man United player and compared them, Man United win hands down. I mean, they're more expensive. They've got more, but it's what the manager puts in their head and what they take onto the pitch at the moment is it's not working for them.
No, and that's
I think Man United, like the whole squad, need both a holiday and like 2 weeks, probably 2 weeks rest and 2 weeks training. Ideally before the next game, but that's not going to happen. I think we're playing tonight, right? So in the Carabao.
Actually, you make a good point. They didn't have a proper pre-season, and they've got a lot of internationals. Yeah, I suppose.
I'm sorry, but that's no excuse for what Liverpool and what Arsenal had. I mean, we had to play much earlier. We had no rest because of the bloody Shield. We had to make our squads up for that.
Friendly, man. You guys had what?
We had the FA.
When did you guys get out of the Europa League? We were there until like the semi-final.
No, we didn't. We weren't even in Europa League at that.
That's my point. United was still playing games in freaking August.
So were we though. I'm sorry. So did we. I mean, if we didn't have a break. I'm sorry. I don't care if there's friendlies or whatever that happens. We played FA Cup. You guys played Europa League. We played Shield.
Wait, wasn't the FA Cup over in like June?
No, July.
Yeah. It's like yesterday. Do you honestly think Thomas the Tank Engine would be making different decisions when he's on the ball? 95% backward pass rate. If he had 3 years holiday, that guy's that guy you play on FIFA and you can't get the ball. It's so annoying. You start making bets. It's just
okay. We're going to finish the podcast in a sec. Okay, so I'm going to get your opinion on this. Who's worse out of these two players? It's going to be United and Arsenal because there's no point talking about Leeds and Liverpool. They've actually got good squads. Who's worse, Phil Jones or Sead Kolasinac?
Jones. Jones is, I think, reported today that he's going to be injured and out in rehab until like November. So that means another summer passes where we can't sell him to some other team. So he doesn't play for us. He gets paid. He gets paid to not play, and surely that would be him.
I'm going to counter your argument. Sead Kolasinac, if he plays the games, he'll basically lose Arsenal games. At least if Phil Jones doesn't play, you can't blame him for losing your games.
Is Kolasinac worse than Squadron Mustafi? What's he doing?
Mustafi had a good season last year, I thought. Compared to the 2 seasons before, pathetic. But, he ran rings around. He could be a cripple with a broken leg, and he would still have more panache than Sead Kolasinac. I'm telling you, there's a purpose in life. You know what he does? He gets to his train stop. Even if he's 15 hours late, he'll get to his train stop. He doesn't have to. He might opposition because he gives so much possession backwards.
Wait, dude, he can do no wrong in my eyes. He just made sure Ozil didn't get, mugged at knife point. So
that's all he's going to be remembered for at Arsenal. Is saving Ozil's life. That's it. Ponna, what do you think? Who's the worst, Jones or Kolasinac?
You know what? I'm just glad neither of them are playing for Liverpool. I'm not going to say anything because you think these guys are bad, mate. Like, seriously, I could give you like 12 people from Liverpool over the time watching, and they're such Liverpool players. Like,
I know, like,
Oh,
why can't Liverpool get them off?
yeah, I'll never forget. We used to have a guy called TT Camera. I know he's a striker. These guys are defenders. We used to have a guy called TT Camera. I remember him taking a shot from outside the box and it went out for a throw-in. That's just, Salif Diao.
Oh, wow.
Man,
I mean, seriously. Oh,
Arsenal's
yeah.
great.
I mean, Crouch wouldn't even be one of our worst signings. So, I'm just glad we're not talking about these guys in a Liverpool shirt. Yeah.
We had Yaya Sanogo. Yaya Sanogo. Do you know how bad that guy was? He didn't even know left or right foot was. Man. It was a real Liverpool of old player. Uncle Phil, which one's worse, Sid Kolasinac or Phil Jones?
It's a pointless question because it's like asking, did you hate Jar Jar Binks more or Anakin Skywalker? Or the acting of Hayden Christensen and Princess Leia? It's just all bad.
No, but I mean, who's more detrimental though to the team? I mean, there's definitely merit in that question.
I think Jones has played in some good matches for United previously when he was a bit younger, although he was always...
Pretty sure he started at centre-back when we thumped you guys 8-2, so,
Yeah, I know. That's what I mean. That's why.
Kolasinac, I've never seen him do anything. Full stop.
Okay, well, thank you all so much. We've had a riveting discussion this evening. I'd love to thank my friends Phil, Ponna, and Shnu. And this is the lads. And we will be back next week to talk more footy. And we hope that you found everything really interesting and the insight as to why we have our opinions the way that they are over the history of what we've experienced in football, what we've seen our clubs go through over the last 15 years. Really, really showcases why we have our thoughts and the way that we support our clubs and why we can be positive and very critical at the same time as to what they're doing. So we hope that you will stick with us, the lads. We will keep having really amazing shows where we can just speak our thoughts. And good evening, good afternoon, and good morning to you all.